diverse individuals who had probably never been to a forum meeting before attend this meeting. That's the kind of result that we're looking for in these programs. So again, thank you all very much for your support of those programs. We have lots of people here to be proud of. I think it was Isaac Newton who said, I can only see so far today because I stand on the shoulders of those who went before me. We have today, we are extremely honored to have a panel of 4 past diverse leaders of the ABA Forum on Construction Law. These folks are the pioneers of diversity and inclusion in this organization. I'm going to briefly, and this is a very brief introduction, they each have resumes longer than, but I'm going to introduce each of them. We're going to have a panel discussion. I don't know if they're going to take questions or not. We'll find out. I first want to introduce the person to my immediate right, your immediate left, Ava Abramowitz. Ava has served the forum as the chair of Division 3. She was the chair of the first membership committee in 1999 and served a 3-year term on the governing committee. She's also a recipient of the forum's most prestigious Cornerstone Award. Ava has been serving as a mediator in the federal courts for the District of Columbia since the late 80s, mediating a diverse assortment of civil cases, including international and domestic corporate cases, class actions, and disputes involving such issues as civil liberties, intellectual property, and employment discrimination. A former assistant United States attorney for the District of Columbia, Ms. Abramowitz teaches negotiations at the George Washington University School of Law. She is the author of The Architect's Essentials of Negotiation and is currently serving on the executive committee of the section on dispute resolution. The second member of our panel is Ms. Deborah Bellotti. Deborah was a longtime chair of Division 10 and was the chair of this forum from 2002 to 2003. She also served as the first female president of the American College of Construction Lawyers. She's recognized nationally for her expertise and her lectures across the country on insurance and construction law. She practiced as a litigator for more than 40 years with an emphasis on construction and insurance coverage. She has substantial experience with delay and defect claims arising out of commercial and residential construction projects. She has been consistently recognized as one of the leading construction attorneys in Chambers USA and the Legal 500 United States. She is now a mediator and arbitrator with JAMS. Our third speaker is Ms. Deborah Griffin. Debbie Griffin was the first diverse and first female chair of the Forum on Construction Law. She served as chair from 1990 to 1991, and before that was on the governing committee from 1986 to 1990. She also has received the Forum's prestigious Cornerstone Award and is a fellow of the American College of Construction Lawyers. She's a partner in the construction industry practice group of Holland & Knight in its Boston office. Ms. Griffin concentrates her practice in the area of construction, commercial litigation, and bankruptcy. She regularly advises contractors, owners, and sureties on construction contract, administration, and claims matters, and handles construction disputes from start to finish. And finally, second to my right, to your left, Leslie King O'Neill. Leslie O'Neill was chair of the forum, was chair of Division 1 from 1991 to 1992, served on the governing committee from 1993 to 1999, and was chair of the forum from 1997 to 1998. She too is a fellow of the American College of Construction Lawyers and served on its board of directors. Leslie is Associate General Counsel of Brassfield & Gorey, an ENR Top 100 commercial general contracting firm. Prior to joining Brassfield & Gorey, Leslie was a shareholder in the construction group at Greenberg Trauer. Early in her career, she was a partner at Holland and Knight for 12 years, where she was chair of the firm's National Construction Practice Group and was litigation practice area leader in the Orlando office. She received her BA from the University of Florida and her JD from the University of Florida College of Law. Finally, to moderate this esteemed group, I've this discussion, I've asked a member of the Diversity Committee of the Forum, who's been very active, to take on that task, Kelsey Funes. Kelsey is a partner in the firm of Phelps Dunbar, where she practices in the Baton Rouge office. She's currently a member of the Division I Steering Committee, the Trial Academy Committee, and of course the Diversity Committee. Kelsey represents both plaintiffs and defendants in their disputes involving public and private construction projects. She has represented owners, contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, and design professionals in state and federal courts in Louisiana, as well as in mediation and arbitration across the Gulf Coast region. Kelsey has handled matters involving all aspects of the construction process, including public bidding, bid protest, delay and inefficiency claims, claims involving defects, enforcement of payment and lien claims, as well as claims against performance and payment bonds. She also regularly counsels clients in the drafting and negotiation of construction contracts, including AIA documents and EPC contracts. Kelsey, I'd like to turn over the mic to you.
So we want to thank everyone for joining us today for this really innovative and exciting panel. It's nice to see so many people here to listen to this esteemed group of ladies talk about the history of the forum. What we hope to accomplish today is to share some of their experiences as young women lawyers new to the forum and new to the practice, forging paths and leadership in the forum, participation in some of the decisions that have shaped what we know the forum to be today, and also developing successful legal careers. So to get started, we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about sort of the history of the forum's perspective and attention to issues of diversity. And to do that, I want to hand it over to Debbie Griffin, who was the first diverse chair in 1990, as Dave mentioned, and ask her to tell us a little bit about the early emphasis on diversity in the forum.
Thank you, Kelsey. So the first year that I served on the governing committee of the forum was 1986, as Dave said. And that happened to be the year in which the ABA as a whole adopted a goal, a stated goal called Goal 9. And it was a rather simple statement which indicated that it declared that the goal of the ABA was to promote full and equal participation in the profession by minorities and women. And the forum fairly readily took up that challenge. A couple of years after that, John McGuinn, who was the chair that immediately preceded me with the forum, mentioned the Goal 9 and the issues of diversity in at least 3 out of the 4 of his chair's letters, devoting one entire column to that issue. And in the issue where he devoted the entire thing to diversity, he began by summarizing some of the data that had been recently published in written reports by the Task Force on Minorities in the Profession and the Commission on Women in the Profession, which, if memory serves, was chaired by Hillary Clinton. I reread those issues of his chair's letter, and if I hadn't just told you that these were written in 1989, you would have thought they had been written last week. One of his comments after he summarized the results of these 2 ABA issued reports on minorities and women in the profession, he said, "I read these reports and I was so saddened because while we have made a lot of progress, there is significant room for improvement." And I think that is probably the same observation that you will hear over and over again both in this panel and in discussions of the diversity committee in general. Through the years, diversity has remained in the spotlight and in the forefront of what the forum has tried to do, but I think the lesson is, well, yes, we have made significant progress. There is always room for improvement.
So around this time and while we were having discussions, what we got to talk about with Ava Abramowitz was she was the chair of really, I think, the first membership committee, and I think was behind sort of building the first membership committee that the forum had. And one of the focuses was diversity and inclusion. And so I think there's a lot to learn from that effort of the forum. So Ava, can you tell us about that?
Thank you. Please do. Short, my arms are too short. I was talking to my nephew. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Yeah. I was talking to my nephew who was 3, and I told him about history. And I said, for example, you're used to iPads, and there was a time that people used pencil and paper and wrote. And I was explaining to him that there was a time when we had no computers, there was a time when we had no television, and he was just absolutely horrified. Oh, there was a time when we had no membership committee. That's how old I am. When I was asked to speak, I went into my files and I found the old membership committee file. And I found the first agenda, and a question that was asked was, what do you personally want to come out of your participation on this committee? And I think that's the issue facing every committee. What do the members personally want to come out of the committee? How can they use it for their betterment? And we thought, how can we use membership for our betterment? Let me tell you what the governing committee was like at that time. The forum was a top-down joint, 100% a top-down joint. Everything was defined by quality, and quality was defined by the governing committee. Divisions existed, but they had no role to speak of compared to what the divisions do today. And to get anything through the governing committee was difficult because the concept of quality began with a capital Q-U-A-L, on and on. And that's why we're so good. That's why the forum is so strong, because the commitment to quality still exists. But what the membership committee decided to do was to change and have quality not only come from the top down, but also come from the bottom up. And they saw a role for the divisions. This was very, very radical at that time, and it is credit to the governing committee in 1980, 98, and 99 that not only did they let it happen, they blessed it and encouraged it and let it move. And move we did. I also found my first report to the members, and it said, now here's some news. Here are some of the most visible changes. We did the first membership survey, I think, ever done in the forum, and as a result, we created a membership committee consisting of 1 person per division and representatives of women, minority, law students, and young lawyers to better identify unique member needs. We totally revamped our new member introduction to the forum. We now send a welcome kit, as well as a 50% registration discount to be used by new members and first-time attendees at the first forum meeting that they attend. We even have a new members breakfast so that members feel at home from their very first meeting. We created division and membership-wide listservs. I cannot tell you how radical that was way back in 1998. First, nobody knew what a listserv was. And second, that the divisions could talk to each other without going through the governing committee and getting the blessing of the governing committee. It was very, very radical. So that everyone who wants a home in the forum can have that home, emailing each other with relative ease. Very, very radical. We increased the importance and length of the annual meetings division breakfast so that people who want to be more active in the forum get increased opportunities to participate by speaking at the forum. We were acutely aware that with firm economics, the only way people would be allowed to come to a forum meeting is if they were either writing or speaking, or on a program, or doing something. And by having division programs for the first time, we had more people on panels and more people who could say, I have to go, I'm speaking. We expanded purely social opportunities for meeting attendees to advance fellowship and networking, a high priority for many of us. All of you who went yesterday to lunch heard Robbie McPherson and heard Will Hill and Mike Tullo talk about the fact that when you join the family, you join a family. With the forum, you join a family. And all of us were committed to making the forum a place where everybody had a seat at the table. In fact, if I had one pitch, I would get rid of diversity and start calling it the inclusivity committee. Because diversity says, you're not me. Inclusivity says, come sit down, we have to talk. And the more and more we can do that, the easier I think it will be to make everyone feel absolutely that they have a place at the table. And then there were our to-do lists, which, this is really shocking, were accomplished. And one was to wrap up the forum's membership webpage. And Jim O'Connor, if you're here, I remember him wanting it and the governing committee saying it's going to be too expensive, and he did it. Cleaned up our division membership list so that every member in a division receives division notices. That was radical. Increasing forum diversity. And ends with, and if there's more we can do to make your forum membership your best career investment, we want to know about it. Email anyone on the governing committee, your division chair or me. Keep the forum strong to us all. Let us hear from you. And to the extent that we have people in the audience, people who have been on the membership committee, have been membership leads on their own committees. Lots of hands have gone up. And if everybody here felt that they were a one-man membership committee shop and just put your arms around someone who's just sitting there all by himself, to that extent, if anyone needs someone to go to dinner with tonight, stay afterwards and we'll all figure out dine around plans. That's what the whole forum is about, and that's what the membership committee did.
Thank you, Ava. And we actually discussed over lunch what a great illustration Will gave us yesterday when he asked people in the room to stand up who had been involved in speaking or writing or chairing. It really was a beautiful illustration of the things that I think that first membership committee put into place, how that's played out over the years. It was really a beautiful illustration, and I thank Will for showing us all that information. But next what I want to do is, we'd be remiss, I think, to talk just about the forum, but we all practice in an industry that is evolving too. And so Leslie is the member of our panel who has the experience as being in-house in the industry and for a contractor. Can you tell us sort of what you've seen in terms of the industry's evolution?
Well, yes, of course, when I started practicing law, the legal profession was primarily male. When I was in law school, 20% of the class was women. That was the highest that had ever been. Now I think it's over 50% in most places. And the construction industry, likewise, it was a male-dominated, and still is a male-dominated profession, and business. But the reality of the labor market is that there aren't enough males to fill all the slots. And also, there's a realization that certain things, women have a capacity to be managers. Women have a capacity to be estimators. That everybody doesn't have to look the same. And in fact, the clients value the fact that the teams that come to seek their business have diversity. So what I see at Braswell and Gorey and other contractors and architects and engineers and elsewhere is that in the workplace, the profession is becoming more diverse. There are women in estimating, there are women project managers, women in management at Braswell and Gorey, which is a privately held company. I think Wilson told all our secrets yesterday, so I won't bore you with that. But anyway, so yes, it's a big change, and when I was in private practice too, and of course all of us have been around for more years than we want to count, the practice has changed. There are many more women women associates, particularly many more women here. I mean, the joke used to be that we could have a women group meet in the ladies' bathroom because there was, and the one benefit of coming to these meetings is there was no line to go to the bathroom, which is not the case anymore. But that's progress. So definitely we have we've come a long way, but as Debbie mentioned in John McGuinn's letter, we've come a long way, but there's a long way to go. You know, when I look out at the audience here, it's not completely diverse, and maybe never will be, but I think that's our goal, right?
So, and I should have mentioned at the beginning, the panel's open to questions. So if anybody has questions about any of the things that they're talking about, they're open to taking questions, and we'll give an opportunity for questions at the end as well. But so now kind of shifting from the industry, what sort of came through as we were talking in preparation for this discussion, and I would imagine everybody in this room sort of shares the understanding that mentorship is a really important part, not only of becoming the lawyer that we all want to be, but also on your path in the forum. And so I'd like to ask Deb Bellotti, has good advice to give, I think, on that, and just insights there.
Well, I have advice. You can decide whether it's good advice or not. I know what it is. In putting this panel together, we spent a lot of time, under Kelsey's good guidance, talking about history and our lives and what we had done and how we had done it and how we had gotten to where we are. And everybody here knows, and a lot of you in the audience who know me know, that I have a theme in my life about how blessed I've been and how lucky I was. And I have thought a lot about how I was mentored as a young lawyer. And I realized it, I think, very quickly. A couple of things Leslie said are certainly true. When I started practicing law in 1975, there weren't many women in the practice, even in San Francisco. And there were really no women in the construction practice, which I ultimately evolved into. And I think it's also true that certain of us of that generation didn't have any expectation that we would have mentors who looked like us objectively. I really didn't go into the law firm that I joined in 1977, Farrell, Braun and Martel, from which I just retired at the end of last year, 40 years. I didn't go into that firm. More for them than for me, but yes. It was a wonderful place to be a lawyer for 40 years. Not so good to be 40 years practicing law there, but I mean, at my age. But I didn't know anything when I started practicing law. I became a lawyer because I watched Perry Mason as a kid, and I thought it'd be really cool to get somebody to break down on the stand and say, I did it. Yeah. That really is true. No lawyers in the family, nothing. But more importantly, I for some reason decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And my parents, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, my dad was a working guy, they had a wonderful marriage, they raised 3 children, and they said to all of us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my sister said, I want to be a teacher, and my brother said, I don't know. And I said, I want to be a lawyer. And they said, okay, yeah, well that's good, go be a lawyer. And I had no expectation from my parents that I couldn't do this. And when I joined the Farrell firm, there were no women lawyers, there were certainly no women partners, but I had the best mentors and the most, like Ava's, as I like a lot of Ava's ideas, I was welcomed into that firm of 21 lawyers. I was given cases to work on with partners whose judgment and integrity I respected and came to respect even more over the years. And I learned from them. And I think I've carried that forward in my practice and in my life. So I guess if I have a message about mentoring and inclusion and being mentored, even more importantly, you don't need to look for somebody who looks like you objectively. You really don't. You need to look for somebody whose judgment you respect, whose expertise you respect, who is an inclusive and a generous person with integrity. I think mentoring is about bringing people into your world, whatever that world is, moving them, helping them move along, introducing them to your contacts and your clients, and getting out of the way. And that's what my most important mentors over the years, some of whom are on this panel, many of whom are in this room, did for me. They brought me in, and they were, by and large, not women. And now, as I got more involved with organizations like the Forum, as I met these people and other women, I certainly got mentoring and guidance from people who looked more like me. But I realized that if we all limit ourselves, either as mentors or as mentees, to the concept that we gotta find somebody who's just like us, objectively, you're missing a whole lot of good input, and it's more about finding somebody who's going to include you and respect you and help launch you, and be there if you stumble, but get out of the way and let you shine as well. The Forum does that and has always done that. And I'm blessed to say that I had that in my career as a practicing lawyer as well. So that's what it's about to me.
Can I say something in talking about mentors and particularly about the Forum? So when I first started with the Forum, I remember going to a meeting in Washington, D.C., and I sat down, and next to me was a very nice man from New York, whose name was Ed Corwin. And so he and I chatted and whatever, and hit it off. I mean, he was a very charming, nice man. And so then, fast forward in January, the next year, I was at the meeting at the Waldorf in New York, the iconic Waldorf meeting. And I ran into Ed again, and Ed had just become the chair of Division I because the divisions were just getting started. And so I had known him for, I had met him at a program, so we had a long acquaintance. And he said, "How would you like to be on the steering committee?" I'm like, "Oh, sounds great. What's the steering committee?" I had no idea, but it sounded like a good idea. So he put me on the steering committee. Well, who else was on that steering committee? John Lynchie, Alan Overcash, both former chairs and Cornerstone recipients, and a few other people. It was like an all-star team. And I was like barely out of law school, wet behind the ears, knew nothing. But I did know these people are smart. And if I just sit here and don't screw up, I'm going to learn a whole lot. And in fact, I did, and then I got to be the co-chair of our program that we came up with. And I co-chaired with B.C. Hart, who was kind of another icon of the construction industry. And Ed Corwin and B.C. Hart were my mentors in the Forum. I mean, they launched me. They made me a construction lawyer. I knew nothing about construction. I didn't even know what a 2x4 was. I was a sociology major. And so obviously I had to be a lawyer because there's nothing you can do with sociology. And, but the Forum, they were very kind. They were obviously very senior to me, but they were very kind. They took an interest in my career. They showed me, introduced me to people. They gave me opportunities. And, like Debbie, then I started meeting other women. But I think that it's incumbent on us now. What I'm hearing is now that I'm more senior, experienced.
Glad you didn't say over there.
Experienced. It really is incumbent on us to reach out, I think, and be mentors. You don't have to wait for them to knock on your door. And, that was something those gentlemen were reaching out to me, and I don't think I have done a good job of reaching out to other people, and I intend to do better. And I would challenge all of you all who are at my age level to do the same.
I'd like to build on both what Debbie said and what Leslie said. If you're new, you also have a responsibility, and that is to walk through the door when someone opens it for you, and to recognize that someone has opened a door for you. And if no one has opened the door for you, push it open and walk through. Everybody talks about diversity as if it's the responsibility of one side or the responsibility of the other side. It's the responsibility of absolutely every person. There is so much hate and anger in the world. It is incumbent upon all of us to spread light, to spread friendship, and to be welcoming. And so whether you're on the outside looking in or on the inside looking out, find someone to bring along with you.
I'd like to add to what Ava is saying about everyone's responsibilities, and I'll hark back again to the column that John Wynn wrote in 1989. He was actually made some very specific suggestions about how senior people could take affirmative steps to promote diversity within either their firms, their organizations, and the bar associations in which they were participating. And he had 4 specific suggestions. One was listen. Listen to the people who are telling you what challenges they have as members of a minority group or anybody that's in a minority position. Listen and digest what they're saying. Secondly, if you're in a position to assign responsibility to people within an organization, be it a firm, a company, or an association, make sure that there is a point person who's given the charge of owning the issue of promoting diversity. Give them the responsibility to do it and to self-report. And if you're in an organization, his 3rd suggestion was if you're in an organization, insist that the organization self-evaluate and self-report within the organization, and if it's in a hierarchy, then report upstairs on what you've been doing, what actions you've been taking, what plans you've made, and the progress that you've made. And his final concrete suggestion was to share ideas with your peers and your colleagues. If you've done something that was successful, spread the idea around so that other people don't have to keep inventing wheels that you've already been turning. So those, I think, all of those suggestions are ones that those of us who are more senior can take to heart and progress.
So another topic that came up in our discussions to get ready for today that was really, I think, again, brought out by some of Will Hill's comments yesterday were some of the things that you ladies had a part in, developing in the forum, and some of the things that that attribute, I think, to the forum's success. I know, Leslie, you made comments about how this organization is different than other ABA organizations, and what it seems like, you guys being in important leadership roles in the organization, what you've seen as attributing to the success of the forum. And I thought it would be nice to share with this group what those things are and what suggestions might be for the future to carry it forward.
Well, we were actually talking about this at lunch. I was talking to Tom Rosenberg about the fact that when I first started being involved in the forum leadership, it was instilled in me that the forum organization structure was up and out. You serve your time, your division chair, steering committee member, blah, blah, blah. You move up maybe to the governing committee, maybe you become the chair. And eventually, you're the immediate past chair, and then you're done. And you move off the list. I mean, it's time for the other people to come in and take over. And that was instilled in me from a young, when I first started, that you're not going to hang around here for 20 years and run things. If that's what you think, then you're in the wrong group. And there were other organizations that I was involved in, which shall remain nameless, but they had a different structure. And the people in the forum were many of us were members of both, and intentionally did not follow that model. And I think the success of the forum is, well, I won't say completely the result of that, but that's, I think, a lot of it is that there's been room for people to come up, people to take over, and people who have been in charge to step aside, and maybe we offer a few little suggestions now and then. But for the most part, we let the new people take over and do their thing.
Well, and it's a testament to that whole concept of the forum that you look around this room and you see people who were in the forum leadership 15, 20 years ago. And we didn't just all disappear when we couldn't be leaders anymore. Why? Because, as Will Hill said so eloquently yesterday, this becomes a family for people when you join and when you get involved. And the forum concept that Leslie just described of kind of up and out really doesn't mean you disappear, you go away. but it means that you're not going to run things forever, and we're going to get new ideas every single year or every couple of years, and we're going to see new speakers. How many other organizations do you belong to where you go, you see a panel brochure come out or come up on the internet, and you say, same old 5 or 6 people who are speaking again? It's not, I mean, there are some really great speakers who would love to speak every single year at every single program. If you lock those things in, you're not going to have the opportunities available for people who are coming up, and we're all going to suffer from that because we're not going to learn new ideas or see new styles or bring people in and make them part of the family. We were also a group of us sitting at the table the other day when Wendy was saying, okay, I think we're going to get to 700, and 3 of the past forum chairs, I being one of them and a couple of others, said, my God, in our day we would have killed for 500 people at an annual meeting, right? I mean, it's really true. What you all have done, what this organization of people has done as you have continued to be strong and to grow and to bring new people in, is not only just to continue to do the best construction CLE that's done in the country, and trust me, I've gone to a lot of CLE, I really believe that and mean it, but you've expanded the forum message about that Will talked about yesterday, that Leslie has talked about, and Ava and Debbie Griffin. And that's made this organization stronger, more interesting, and it's the reason why you've got a bunch of us sitting around the room who haven't been in leadership for years and who don't just come to speak and then leave. We stay, we go to the events, we want to stay part of this vibrant organization and family. And the diversity issue, I think, helps with that, or the inclusiveness issue helps, because it's kind of fun to talk to people who don't look exactly like you or didn't come from exactly where you came from. And we all know that intuitively, but I think the forum really keeps striving for that, and that's something I applaud and I think we all applaud.
So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that this did not become is a panel about being a woman in the forum, or a woman in leadership in the forum. And Larry Harris, who was the first African American president of the forum, was supposed to be with us today, couldn't be with us today. But Debbie Griffin got to visit with him, and he gave her some thoughts to pass on. So I would ask her to share his thoughts so that we can all benefit from that.
Yeah, as the folks to my left were talking about what we were going to be saying during this panel, it became quite clear that there was a voice missing from the conversation, and that is that of Larry Harris. So I did call him earlier this week and asked him for some words that he would like for me to pass along to the group here. And mostly I think he was speaking to the young lawyers in the room who may feel that they have a challenge to justify to their employers, their firms, their companies, coming to a room full of lawyers and speaking and spending their firms or their companies' money and time to be here in a room full of lawyers. And what he wanted me to pass along is that part of the whole mentorship experience, which he both benefited from and is paying forward, is the ability to make referrals. And most of the referrals that I think most of us have had during our careers have been from other lawyers, either lawyers in other parts of the country or lawyers in different fields. But he wanted me to pass along that diverse or not, lawyer-to-lawyer referrals is an important part of each of our professional development and business development growth. He also was relating that even though he's now retired from the practice of law, he has remained active in bar associations as well as industry associations. And when he has the opportunity to bring someone along or to get someone else involved, he does think about the opportunities that he has to refer work or pass along an opportunity to a lawyer of color. Because he says, you know, although much progress has been made, there's still a lot of significant progress to be made, and he takes advantage of those opportunities, and he wanted me to pass that along. He also had an anecdote. Toward the end of his career, the firm that he was with in Washington, D.C. merged with an international firm, and he was fortunate enough to be involved in those negotiations, as I understand it. And he went to London to meet with his soon-to-be new partners. And there, sitting across the table from him, was an African Brit who, you know, when it was his turn to speak, spoke with an impeccable British accent. And Larry took it upon himself to say, "Hey, man, you know," he was determined to demonstrate that you know, just because they looked like each other didn't mean that they were the same personality, the same temperament, and were governed by some of the same habits and expectations. So we kind of joked about the bias that Americans have regarding people that speak with a British accent, and I don't know if it was appropriate or not, but I said, "Oh, you mean stuffed shirts come in all colors?" I said, "Yeah." We miss Larry's presence here, but I hope you get to meet him on another occasion.
And Leslie, I know you wanted to mention somebody else, Marion Marquette. Say a
Yes.
word about her.
Yes. So when I first started with the forum, you know, Debbie was, I think, on the governing committee, and Marion Burkett, who was from New Orleans and who passed away last year, I think at the age of 101, was also had been a member of the governing committee and was very active in the forum. And she was someone of who was a huge role model for me, because as Debbie said, Debbie Bly said, when we started, I mean, there just weren't any women construction lawyers, but there was Marion Meyer Burkett, who was very accomplished and wrote treatises, and she was not only in New Orleans the first, I think, woman, and she worked for the Deutsch Kerrigan firm for many, many years. She was also Jewish, which was a minority here in a very Catholic part of the world. So she was sort of a double minority, but she always carried herself with great dignity. She was extremely intellectual. She practiced, I think, until very late in her life, and was apparently still giving speeches up until her 90s to bar associations and other groups. And I think we would be remiss not to remember her as really someone, I think Dave said that we were pioneers, but no, the trail had already been blazed and very well marked by Marion. And I would encourage you all to Google her and find out about her career, because she was truly an extraordinary person, and she would have been the chair of the forum. She would have been the first woman chair, because she was on the governing committee, but she declined because of her husband's health. And so, she was all, just as Debbie said, one of the things that was struck me as a young lawyer when I first started coming here was that people like Marion and John McGuinn and B.C. Hart and Overton Curry and Phil Bruner and people who were already icons, and they came to the meetings, and they weren't always on the program, and they weren't in the leadership, but they just came here because they wanted to be here, and it was such a great thing for all of us young people to come along and actually get to be acquainted with them and hear them and so forth. And I hope that that continues, and you all have that same experience.
So before we wrap up, what I'd like to do is give each of you a minute or two to kind of have some closing thoughts or advice you might want to give with people to leave with today. And then we'll open the floor for questions if anybody has any questions. So Debbie, you want to start?
So I guess my closing thought, and this is sort of building on the summary of Larry Harris's thoughts as well, and that is to all the young lawyers in the room, have the confidence and courage to put yourself out there, seek out the opportunities to speak and to write and to have an active role on the committees and the divisions of the forum. Have the confidence that you will learn and you will grow. And the very fact of your being willing to do that and to put yourself out there is going to speak volumes about your ability and your willingness to be part of the family and to be part of the team.
I guess I would, obviously I'd echo a lot of what Debbie Griffin just said, but I am reminded of a couple of conversations I've had with younger partners in my firm and around our city about kind of lamenting that the practice of law has changed over the years. The practice of law, I think, was probably a kinder, gentler place when I started out, although maybe that's just a perception that you have. But there's no question that the practice has changed somewhat. The internet has made us all a lot smarter, but also in some ways a lot more vulnerable. There are just changes. The world is a little bit different. And I think that just as you have to fight for things that you believe in and that are important to you, if you care about the kinds of issues that we are talking about and have been talking about for today and for years, you have to fight for them. You have to get out there in front and try to do the things that you think are right for the profession, for yourself, but for the others who you want to bring along. And that involves some effort. It's not easy, and we're all at the mercy of the, well, I'm not at the mercy of the timesheet anymore, happily, but you all might be still. It's a silly point, but I really believe it. It's hard to do good work. It's hard to make difficult decisions. It's hard to leave the people who you really love, your family, and go out and do battle and come to these things. But if you find a place like we all have in this room, like the forum, where you are comfortable and respected and included, you have to give back to that organization and make sure that it continues to grow and be vibrant. You all get that, because that's why we're here today, and that's why you have over 700 people at this annual meeting. But I guess my message is pay attention to what's important to you in your life and your career, and if these diversity issues are important, and I think they are, looking at the faces around the room, then figure out a way that you can push that ball forward one more step. That's all that needs to be done, is that we all push it forward one more step, and we'll get there.
Yeah, I would build on that. Abe and I were talking at one of our prep sessions, and we were talking about how the forum has grown and changed and developed, and how proud that we are of the fact that we played a part in that. And I said, to me, the forum is a little bit like my daughter, who, if any of you know, is the apple of my eye. And I look at her as a grown-up now, 26, and I think, wow, look, and I don't know that I can take complete responsibility for how she turned out, but I like to think I had at least something to do with it. And I know can't take complete responsibility for how well the forum has turned out, but I was amazed at how many things we talked about 20 years ago have come to pass and even surpass our wildest dreams. And so I said, it's our baby. And she said, yes. And that's what makes us good, is that we all feel this ownership. You know, and like Debbie said, it's everybody. It's a village. It's a family. We all have a responsibility. We all have to take part. It's not just the people on the governing committee or the people in the division chairs or whoever. It's all of us. And that has been the case that even when we are out of leadership, I mean, there's nothing that any of us wouldn't do if Wendy or Tom said, you know, we need you to turn the light switches off and on. Got it. No problem. You want me to fix the mics? Yeah, okay. How about I could edit some of the slides too, you know?
I can't do either of those last two, but I can turn the lights on and off. That I've got down.
But it's an ownership thing, and it's like it's your forum. It's your forum, and it's what you make of it. So I think it's great, but it can be great.
You know, I teach law students, and I tell them that the reason to join the American Bar Association is because you don't want your boss to know you're stupid, and this way you can find someone who knows more than you and find out the answer. But the other reason is pure, unmitigated friendship. Life is very, very hard. And to the extent that you have a buddy near you or next to you or someone you can call, and I call Debbie Bellotti because she's on Pacific time and I'm Eastern time and she's up at 2 o'clock in the morning, is that it will make your life more fun, more complete, and better. If you think about the major problem facing lawyers, construction or otherwise, is we have the highest rate of suicide, of divorce, of alcoholism, of drugism, of thisism and thatism. Being part of the forum is good for your mental health. So come next year, come every year, come forever. We want you, we need you, and I'm very grateful that you've given me a chance to say that.
Does anybody have any questions for the panel?
Put them all to sleep. Always.
Right. So the message that I take from the time that I really have been fortunate, so fortunate to spend with these ladies, is that when you see an opportunity for work, and there's plenty of them, take it. If you don't see the opportunity, try to make one, or try to find someone who looks like they can give you something to do, because work, as illustrated again by Will yesterday, work is what makes you feel engaged, work is what helps you sort of act on that ownership, work is what will help get you involved, and there's plenty of work. I think as this table will attest, there's plenty of work to be done. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for coming, and thanks for letting us do this today.
I want to thank you so much for doing this. I reached out to these 4 months ago and invited them to be here today because I thought, what a great resource and what great stories you have about where we've been and where we've come and what we've accomplished and what we haven't yet accomplished, what we still need to do. And I think we've all benefited from your experience. I remember, I think it might have been one of my first forum meetings, seeing Deb Bellotti up at the podium at the iconic Waldorf Astoria and saying, wow, this is an organization where a woman can actually be the chair. And it's not all just men, and it's not all just white men. So, you know, that really impressed the hell out of me way back when. And here I am today as the chair of this tremendous organization, and Christine is going to be the chair-elect next year. And we're just so delighted because we hadn't had a woman since Deb. And so, you know, it was about time, right? But, you know, it really is a testament to how far we've come. And I just want to say one more thing about the personal case for this group. These women are amazing. So many of you all out there have been so amazing. I personally had a lot of career changes in the last few years, and these people were a sounding board for me. You know, what do I do? I need help, and I know many of you have had life changes and career changes, and we've all been there for one another. You know, somebody finds themselves without a job or has to move to a new city, and we reach out to our forum friends, and we say, help, I need help, and they're there. Honestly, God, they're there. I mean, it's the most amazing group of people that I've had the privilege of being part of. They're better than my own partners any day of the week. And Ron, if you're in the room, I'm sorry about that. He's delightful. But I mean, when I needed something, you all were there. I needed help with a California licensing issue, and I talked to John Heisey, and or Eileen, and said, I need help out in California. I reached out to all of you, and half of the time, you don't even want to charge me. I say, oh no, you can bill for this, and no, I got it. This is a favor. The resources in this room. I mean, in addition to just being my friends, you bend over backwards to help those around you. Instead of competitors, we're compatriots, and we're helping one another be better at what we do as people, as professionals. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you're not part of this organization, or this is your first meeting, I hope we've got you hooked. I know I threw one hell of a party this week, and so in addition to the great CLE, I'm hoping you had a lot of fun. So thank you for being here, and thank you all for sharing.